Hi everyone, this is Megha. Welcome to my channel by the Art Bug, and I'm a watercolor artist and now I'm also an art therapy facilitator based in Bangalore, India. So in a way, I'm going to restart everything again, and in today's videos I'm going to start with watercolor materials. What are the basics of watercolors, what all you need to start your watercolor journey. So expect a lot of tips and a lot of ideas to begin your watercolor journey, because when I was starting my journey there were a lot of questions and confusions, so I'll try to answer all that in this video. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and start with it. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about the materials. So basic materials are of course paint, brush and watercolor paper, but that's not about it. You just can't go ahead and use any paper, especially with watercolors, because it is very important to choose the right kind of material for that. So we'll go through everything. Alright, so let's start with the paper. So paper is available in different forms like this loose sheets, and then you can have a spiral bound or watercolor pad and lots of other variations that come. So for starting out, it's a good idea to start with the sheets. Like once you get used to it, you can go ahead and buy a sketchbook for yourself, but for beginning you can start with these loose sheets. So basically watercolor paper can be divided into two types. One is hot pressed. As you can see here, this one is very smooth and doesn't have any texture, whereas this one is cold pressed, which has a little texture and it is not very smooth. It's a little bit rough. So when you are beginning or when you are starting, this kind of paper is the best to use, which is cold pressed. And you have to remember three things: that it has to be cold pressed, then it has to be 300 GSM or 140 lbs around or more, and it has to be a cotton paper. Okay, so also watercolor paper has a bad name because it is considered to be expensive. So when you are starting out, there's a nice hack that you can try. So go for 300 GSM, don't compromise on that. Go for a cold pressed watercolor paper, so no compromise on that as well. And then you can go ahead and use 25 to 30% cotton, because that will fall a little bit cheaper, and that one you can use for your practice, like when you are just trying out swatches like this, or you're just practicing brush strokes. Then you don't need a very expensive sheet of paper. Plus, if you would do it on any other paper, it won't come as nice. So use 25 to 30%, which will be a little cheaper but still give you the same effect. So that's the hack for you. Next up, let's talk about the watercolors. So watercolors come in pans like this, or they come in tubes like this. And apart from this, there are other variations like pencils and crayons and pens and inks and so many other things. But as a beginner, you have to focus only on these two things. So these come like this as a set, so you can go ahead and buy that. You can go and see whatever is coming into your budget. And when you are beginning or starting, it's okay to get a student grade, but get a high quality one. Don't go for a very cheap one, and get a student grade paint and try it out just to see, and then move up on to professional paints. So this is about the paints. So with the tubes, there are benefits. With pans, there are different benefits. So with the tube, it is like the paint is already wet, so it's easy to take it out and put a little water and mix it up. So it's very good, especially when you are doing something really big. So it's easy to mix, easy to use when you are working in your studio. Whereas with the pans, they are easy to carry, they are travel friendly, and you can take them anywhere in the home also if you want. So that ways they are easy. But before using them, you have to activate them. So you can use any spray bottle like this with water, and then just spray to just activate it. So my secret tip for the watercolor paint is that don't go ahead and buy a very expensive watercolor set which has millions and millions of colors, because eventually you are not going to use them no matter what. So instead of that, you can even get the primary colors mixed with black and white if you want. Otherwise, just get the primary colors of any good brand. And what I like to do is I buy these small pens which come, or an empty pen box, and then I'll buy the tubes and I'll refill them in this and then let it dry. So that way I have refills available with me when this finishes, and I can also carry it wherever I go. Let's move on to the brushes now. So there are different types of brushes. So one is this flat brush, which is commonly used. Then there's the round brush, which is the most common, most important one. And then there are fancy brushes like this one. So this one is a dagger. So you have fan brush, you have cat tongue, and you have so many others, filbert, and so many other brushes. So let's not go into all of these right now, because as a beginner stage, if you want, you can get this kind of a flat brush for doing washes or doing larger areas. But other than that, I recommend this kind of a round brush, which is very helpful and very useful. So you can, number 8 is my go-to wand, like magic wand brush, and I can paint almost everything with it, unless it is very large. But all medium and small size painting can be very easily done with this. So you can, if you want it for detailing, if you want a smaller size, you can go for a 1 or a 0, or you can buy a pack which has 3-4 sizes of round brushes. So whenever you are buying the brush, it is very important to see that it has a nice beautiful point like you see here. So this is very good for painting and detailing and so many other things. So look for that in the brush. And again, the bristles, you can have either natural or synthetic, so that is your personal lifestyle preference, which one you like. So for starting, you can just go and buy any number 8 round brush. If you like synthetic, go and buy synthetic. If you are okay with natural hair brushes, buy that. So this is what you need to start out. Also, when it comes to watercolor brush, its water holding capacity is also important. So look for a brush that holds water nicely. Natural brushes are slightly better as compared to synthetic brushes when it comes to this. But again, it differs from artist to artist, and you need to try a few brushes and see which one is your favorite. And as for the secret tip about the brushes, I already gave it to you. It's the number 8 round brush, which is my magic wand, and I use it all the time. Also, if you want to dig deeper into brushes and know more about the brushes, how they work, this, that, types of brushes, then there is a guide, a free guide of mine, which I have linked in the description. So don't forget to check that out. If you want to dig deeper into watercolor paper, different types and different things, what to use where, when to use what, then there's a free guide which is linked in the description. So don't forget to check that one out. So next important thing is the water, and you need to use 2 jars of water. So that is the secret tip here. One you can use for washing your dirty brush, and the other one you can use to activate your paint, or you can use it for clean washes, because once this water gets muddy, mixing the colors with it, or using this for a new paint is not very nice. Then palettes, you can use this kind of ceramic palettes which are available in the market, this one, or you can just go ahead and use any plate that you might have at home. It could be plastic or ceramic, but the secret tip here is to use only and only white, because only then you will know the true shades of your color. So remember that. Next one is the tissue, which is again very important with watercolor. So if you are not a big fan of tissues, you can use any old cloth or rag or towel, because this is very important to wipe off extra paint or extra water, even clean up, and also to pick up the paint if you spill any by chance. And then the next one is the masking tape, which I have here. So this is also very handy when you are starting or when you're beginning your watercolor journey. So you can use this to stick your paper like this, either on an acrylic sheet, or you can use any board. And then when you're painting, it will prevent the paper from buckling and getting all wet and getting out of shape. And also when you peel off, it will give you nice and clean edges like this as a border to your painting. And if you are using pans like this, a mini spray bottle, any kind of spray bottle is also a very good thing which comes in handy to activate the paint. So that's about it. I think for starting out, this is all you need. If you are confused about what kind of paint to buy, then you can check out my book, or whatever type brush to buy, what kind of paper to buy. Then there is one ebook which I have linked below in the description to help you out, and it has direct links, so you can check that one out. So this really depends on your personal preference, and also on the budget that you have in mind. So according to that, you can get the materials, but don't compromise on the quality a lot, because otherwise that will show up when you start painting. Okay, so before we move ahead into the basic techniques, there's one more secret tip that I would like to share with you, and that is if you get a set like this, don't forget to swatch your colors. So this is what swatching is. It can look like this or it can look like this. You can label and you can uh, put the paint like this. You can also make mini cards like this or something like this also, and you can also go ahead and do something fancy or cute like this, and these are just a few samples of how you can just go ahead and swatch your colors, because what it looks like here, it's not necessary that it will look the same way when you put it on the paper. So this is a very important step, so don't skip it. And it's a very simple technique, and I'll just show you how to quickly do it for one color, and then whatever set you have got, you can do it for all the colors and keep it handy. If possible, if you have a box, do it like this so that you always have this ready for you, and whenever you are going to do anything, then you'll know which colors will look how on the paper and what to use. Whatever colors are there on your palette, you just take and you swatch it like this. So this is a darker shade. You want to see how it looks when we add more water, so add more water like this. You want to see how it looks to add even more water, and just lighten it like this. So this is from dark to light, and you can do this for all the shades that you have. You can even write the name here just for future reference, and you don't have to do it this big. You can do smaller swatches and keep it handy with your paint set, just like I have this, and I just keep it like this with it. And next up, when you're beginning, don't forget to paint a very basic and simple color chart like this, which we have learned in schools as well. So this is a very simple one where you can just put your three primary colors and then you mix them as you go here like this. Again, if you want to get deeper into the color theory, I have a free guide which is linked in the description, so check that out, because it's a very long topic, and maybe we can cover it some other time in some other video. So these are just a basic examples of the color wheel, so that you get a basic idea of how to mix the basic secondary colors from the primary colors and a few colors in between. So don't skip this step, because it may look simple and easy, but it's a very good exercise to try. And if you want to take it a step further, you can try color mixing like this or like this. So very simple, just put a wash of water on your paper and then just drop the colors in there. See how they are mixing and blooming and bleeding, and just observe that and play around with it. So there are lots of simple activities like this which you can try before you dig into watercolor painting. Okay, so color mixing was all about knowing your colors better, so it's very important step. So same way, you have to know your brush better. So for that, you can try these exercises, and it will really help you understand how your brush works, how do different strokes come, how you should hold your brush, how much pressure you should apply. So all that will come in very handy, so don't skip this very useful practice. So to get used to your brush, all you can do is practice a lot of strokes. So put your hand firmly like this on the table, keep this part a little loose, and like this practice drawing some lines like this. Then you practice using the whole brush. Start with the tip, press it down, lift it up, end it with the tip. So this is a very good technique to paint the leaves like this. Then again, put your hand to get a nice fine line. Then the whole brush like this. So practicing this is also a very calming activity, just focusing on the brush strokes, the colors. So that's why when you're beginning, I recommend this any cotton paper. So the one which I'm using right now is 25% cotton. So just get a hang of how your brush really works. Also, see when you are using more paint on your brush and less water. So this is what happens when you dip your brush, wipe the extra water, take some paint, and then when you do the same thing, it's like this. So if you're confused about water and paint ratio, then again this is a very good exercise to try, because it all just comes with practice. Like there is no like a book for it, or some kind of secret to it, or so that's why it only comes with practice. So keep on practicing with your colors and see how it goes. See how your brush works, practice the strokes. And this paper is very budget friendly, so you don't have to worry about it. Once you get hang of all these things, then you can move on to a higher price range paper, and then you can do your actual paintings on that. Okay, so let's get a brief idea about what the two basic watercolor techniques are. So I'm going to use this. I'll just activate the paint a little. Alright, so there are basically two watercolor techniques, which are wet on wet and wet on dry. Other than that, all the other techniques come under this. So I would like to call them as sub techniques, or a part of wet on wet, or a type of wet on dry. So that's about it. So only two basic techniques, and whatever you're painting with watercolors, it's not that you're going to be using only wet on wet or only wet on dry. It's always going to be a mix of both of the techniques. So as you practice, as you paint more, you'll get a hang of what it means. So I'll start with wet on wet. So wet on wet, in very simple words, means painting on a wet surface. So it can be wet paint which you have put already, or it can be water like this, and it gives you really soft edges, as you can see here. So as you can already see, like you can use it for painting sky, or when you're painting landscape, or when you are mixing colors for the petals. So like this. So we'll mix a little blue with a little yellow to get a nice green here. So you can see how the colors are going up and blending in and mixing here. Again, if you add a little darker. So this is all wet on wet. On this wet paint, we are putting more wet paint like this. Just hop on a little red in here, and it will turn into a nice earthy brown, deep color. So here you can see how it is mixing and blending and just giving very soft edges. So you can put some color in here and mix it up on the paper itself. some dark blue. And just mix it and blend it in here. Take some black. So like this. So this is a very basic wet on wet technique. Like I just showed you a patch of how to use it. Then again, wet on dry can be two things. So first is you just take some paint and the paper is already dry and you just paint on it. So like this, when you don't want the paint to mix and bleed, when you just want something very defined like these leaves. So this is an example of wet on dry. And then again, when this dries up, I'll show you something more here. Okay, so now this is dry. So again, you can just take some black here and so this is painted surface, but now it has dried. So again, I'm doing wet on dry and just adding some detailed stuff here. Like this. So that's how both the techniques are, and also all the sub techniques or different technique or with the different types of things that you can do in wet on wet and wet on dry. For that also I have a free guide which is linked in the description, so just grab it and go through it. It's a very short one, so it's like a quick reference guide for you. So you can play around with wet on wet. So again, here I'm putting wet paint first. I didn't put any water. So while it is still wet, we can just drop in some color like this. So again, this is wet on wet. Okay, then take in some more color here. You can do some splatter on this like this. So this is again wet on dry. This is still wet, so we can just lift off some paint like this. So this again is a type of wet on wet, and you can use this to correct mistakes or to create clouds and so many other different things. So just keep experimenting with it. So just play around and practice before you begin. Just get to know your colors with those activities that I showed you before that you can use for color, for practicing with your color and getting to know your colors better. Yeah, so this is bleeding. You can see how the red just went and bled into this yellow. So you can just try and see these things, how they work. So this is again wet on wet. You can do a gradient wash. So like this, just as we did with the swatching. Then towards this side, you can make it lighter. Add a little red up here. Then another technique for wet on dry is this. You take very less water in your brush and more paint, and you just do dry brushing like this. You can see how it creates a nice texture here. Yeah, so that's about it. If you want to get deep into it, you can refer to my book, and unless and until you practice. So the tip and secret here is just keep on practicing. Don't buy too many colors, mix your own colors. Go ahead and do some of those beautiful color charts and play around with your colors. Do activities like this which will help you know your colors better. You'll see how they mix when you put so much water, when you put less water in it, and just play around with it when you are beginning. And as we go ahead, I'll put some tutorials for you. And yeah, so that's about it. So as you can see here, also for the techniques, when blending in this feathers, when painting the feathers, I have used wet on wet, and then putting the highlight for the eyes, for the beak, and for the feathers, I have used wet on dry. Again, in this one, the truck, for the truck I have used lots of blending, so it is all wet on wet. The tree is all wet on wet, and then the splatter that you see here and all the details that you see here have been done using wet on dry. So for any painting, you're going to need both the techniques. Okay, so this is just for a short demo. I'm just going to show you how you can use wet on wet and wet on dry to paint something. So this is a just an abstract landscape, and if you want I can put a detailed video of this later, but for now I'm just sharing the process with you just so that you get a feel of how we can use both the techniques and paint something beautiful with watercolors. So wherever you see the colors, where I have applied on a wet surface, where they are soft and blended in like the sky, that is wet on wet. And wherever where there's detailing like these trees and plants, where you can see the leaves, so that is all wet on dry. If you want a full version of this painting and you want to know what materials I have used, then let me know in the comments. So my last and final tip for today will be experiment with these materials, experiment with the colors, with the brush, with the papers, and with different strokes, with different techniques. Experiment with it all. Give it a try, and just explore it more, and practice, 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 because practice is the only key which will help you get better and better. So don't forget to practice, just even if for 5 minutes, if you are doing every day, that will help you a lot. And also there are tons of links which are useful for you as a beginner, and they are all in the description, so don't forget to check them out. So that's all for today. I hope this helped you answer a lot of questions and will help you kickstart your watercolor journey. If you have any more questions for me, leave them in the comment box and I will be happy to answer them. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and like it and share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, as more such videos will be coming up very soon. Thank you and take care. Bye bye.